And, okay, welcome, Megan. I want to thank you so much for being on this first episode of Soul Creativity with me. I was so excited to have you as my first guest. If anyone doesn't know, I interviewed Megan for the Diamond Beauty series for Buddhist Biohacker for Lisa Gunshore. And we had so much fun doing that interview that we decided we would get together again as soon as possible. So this was our first opportunity. And Megan is really an amazing creatrix and coach. And when we were talking, you had so many things you were expanding on, Megan. But let's talk a little bit first about just creativity in general, because I know we had a good discussion around that and where we think creativity comes from inside of us and outside of us. And so if you have anything to say about that, I know our audience will like to hear, and we're going to have the comment section on too, if anyone has any questions or comments for
Okay, great.
Megan and I.
Well, first, Megan, congratulations on this new platform. This is really great. And
Thank you.
I think the interview that we had was so fun. I don't even know if there was maybe 30 seconds after we got offline that I sent you an email, like, let's do this again. It was such a great connection. And most interviews are not that way.
We had a great time.
Yes. Okay, so creativity, like there's so much, and I really think that where we're headed, there's where we're headed into masks again. There's where we're headed into the Pluto return coming up. There's so much information about what's coming, but I also think what's coming is really the creative renaissance. Like there's a renaissance that's coming, and it is run by the weirdos, the creatives, the creatrixes, all those people who've been at the background all this time, and really finding, like I found it very early lockdown, that there was a lot of room on the grid that there wasn't before. There was room to explore what was happening on the grid. And I think that there's so many people, so many creatives, so many sensitives, so many empaths, so many people who have been in the background for ages and just now are starting to feel comfortable to be able to show up. And this is where these are the people that we lean on over the next 3 to 4 years. These are the people that we have as mentors over the next 3 to 4 years. These are the people that the odder and the stranger that it is pre-March 13th, 2020, that we can compare to that. If that world of whomever we're talking to seems weird, then they're the people that we need to talk to.
I think of it as really the Imagineers and the visionaries. And one thing that came out of the pandemic, I think, is this need for creative expression. Yes. I think people felt it building inside of them. And also for some people, not everyone, but during the pandemic, people were, had the opportunity and the quiet time to actually start doing some self-inquiry and reflection and letting those creative and visionary ideas come to fruition. And you've probably seen that with the people that you're dealing with. But I think creative expression, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I just see that building, expanding, and what people are thinking of as creative, what they're envisioning for creativity. And so I feel like you might not see it so much in mainstream yet, but behind the scenes, I really see these creative expressions for work and just for self-fulfillment or within communities. And I'm wondering if you have seen that in your work at all, and people that are, reaching out to you.
Absolutely. It's people that may not have felt the freedom before. And the Imagineers, I love what you're saying about that, because it's as if there was something, some seed that was planted during quarantine that then started to sprout, and gifts. People are waking up with psychic gifts that they didn't have before, or they didn't have access to before. People are waking up with a heck of I care kind of attitude, only not those words. And it's free. There's freedom. So how is it that we find a way to amplify and turn up all that imagination? How do we turn up all that creativity, and not creativity as we thought it looked like? I think we talked about, I did a practice over summer solstice. We talked about this, right? And I have a girlfriend on the other side of the world. So what we did was we set aside 3 hours on the summer solstice, and I set up a playlist because I love playlists and like old mixtapes. And then we said, like, what is it that we're going to do? And so I took 3 hours. We talked at the beginning and then we talked at the end. How is it that I want to bring in the summer solstice? And how is it that I want to bring in the next 6 months, the next 19 years? What is it that we're activating, and what is it that we're playing? And even it was so fun. It was like, I don't know, bathing myself in creativity and possibility. And I danced and I prayed and I sang and I cleaned my closet and just like all the fun putsy things that I never give myself freedom for. And what would dancing be if it wasn't what we thought it was? So it could just be rolling around on the floor. It could be moving like a spider across the room. It could be dancing with the dog. It could be, right? What do we not know, or what haven't we played with before? And now we make it a weekly practice, not 3 hours, but a weekly practice.
I have seen, and that brings me to the point of collaboration, because I think there's a real rise in that. We're getting away from all those paradigms, the shifting into creating new paradigms. And some that I have seen that are important to me is the rising of the divine feminine, how we're operating more, or at least coming into balance in some areas with the divine masculine. But I feel like, that's where this creativity, where the creator and the creatrix is born out of that feminine energy that's always creating and nurturing ideas. And also that brings us into collaboration, which is a different form of operating, as opposed to competitiveness. And, just us reaching out, talking to each other, how we were saying how much fun we had, how much energy was there. And I'm wondering if people that you work with and yourself stepping into more collaborative endeavors.
Definitely. And what was died on March 13th, 2020. So now we're creating everything new, right? Everything new, business plans, all of that stuff doesn't work anymore. So what now? And what was maybe women could be a little competitive with each other. Women could be catty. Women could be mean girl. And then it's, if a man and a woman are working together, is there any kind of charge there? Is it, like anything like that? What is it if we would just relate to each other as humans rather than a sex? And what would be possible? And what would be possible really? So creativity is from the second chakra. And the second chakra is creativity, emotion, sensuality, and sexuality. So if we're looking at the chakra, I see it like a box. And if we want to access one of the corners, like say we want to access creativity, then it's looking at the other areas. What is it? What could be blocked in our emotions to be able to access our creativity? What could be blocked in our sensuality and how we're experiencing ourselves, how we're experiencing our body? Are we present in our body? How are we experiencing our sexuality? And which doesn't have to be about sex. How is it that we show up in the world that is in a way being embodied, because we are sexual beings, and then is going to activate our creativity? So all of those things. And then being in collaboration, like being in collaboration is being in union, which doesn't have to be about sex. And that there's a intimacy that gets developed that is really like to know another person's heart and soul while working with them, and to have them know us and our heart and our soul while working with them, meets levels of intimacy that we don't usually have every day, that we have or we've reserved for a lover. But now it's possible really in every relationship. And when I say intimacy, that's not sex, it's emotional intimacy, it's spiritual intimacy. It's like what's possible to really know someone at that level. And then to be able to call them on their things, right? Not have it be a big deal, to be called on our stuff, our patterns, and not have it be a big deal. What that gives is like a freedom to be that we've never had before.
Exactly. And you're talking about relationships. And I think, you know, that's where there's really been a lot of shifting as you've been talking about the relationship between the sexes. But I also think, you know, one of the things we're seeing is the rising up of people, you know, saying we don't want to be separate. You know,
Yes.
so many people want there to be a unity, and they do see, you know, us as one, you know, group of human beings, not separate. And I think that that's really important. And again, I'm relating this back somewhat to the divine feminine because of the nurturing aspect of that. On the other hand, I also think of the divine feminine as being bold and, when needed, you know, it's nurturing and gentle and loving, but also, I'm not sure if this is quite the way to say it, but, you know, holding us, I don't want to say accountable, but just sort of pulling from inside of us
Mm.
that nurturing aspect, that accepting aspect, and then not standing, like speaking your truth, I guess, and speaking the truth of, you know, the way you see things. And so I hear of this people in the workplace speaking up a lot more. And I just noticed so many people don't want to put up with what they used to put up with in a traditional setting. And so it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to leave that relationship or leave that setting, but it has to morph into something more sustainable. I'm wondering if you noticed that as well. And I
Absolutely.
think
And
you did.
yes, yes. So, and that relationships are changing, the dynamics and changing at work, in everywhere that we go, with friendships, with the lover, with, I mean, relationships are changing everywhere. And here's the thing that I love about it is that we don't need to sit down and have like a completion conversation anymore. We just need to change the dynamic. We just need to do it. And that for the most part, people are willing to come along. And in the rise of the divine feminine, so many people are anti of the masculine, right? Let's talk so much about the toxic masculine and berate the toxic masculine. But here's an idea. What if it was supposed to be this way this whole time? Like it was supposed to be for the last 2,000 years, the masculine and patriarchy and the toxic masculine, that was supposed to be this way. So we can't talk about it's bad, it's so bad, right? And make all of that wrong and shame
Mhm.
all of that, because that's just more of the patriarchy of this is good and this is bad. What if it were supposed to be this way this whole time? It was part of the plan or design or game or what, you know, whatever that is. And that the rise isn't about a matriarchy. The rise is about union. The rise is about connection. And so as we get to that point, as we complete our things, as we wake up with Insta gifts, as businesses change, as we launch businesses, as you know, crazy stuff is happening on YouTube. And it's the best place, I think, to look at the underground and kind of what's happening. And 8-year-olds that are making six figures on a business that they make up, and tarot readers who woke up one day and all of a sudden know how to read the tarot, and they have 50,000 people following them. It's just so beautiful. It's so amazing. So as we do that, as we shift the conversation, let's see, what's a good example? It's like people pleasing. I, for the most of my life, have been that people pleaser, that person who steps over things, who doesn't say things, who doesn't address things. And then it just snowballs, right? The relationship snowballs of things not said. And it's just like I call it the smelly rhinoceros head in the middle of the room. And there's like no way around it. And what I see in the empaths and the business owners that I get to work with is they're just calling it. And it's not charged, it's not angry. They just address what there is to address and then keep going. It's so amazing and inspiring to be a part of.
That brings me back to the idea of just speaking your truth and being truthful in a situation, and that different model of doing it where you don't have to be necessarily angry about it. You can bring it up. And if you're with a group of people that are balanced enough and are in the same place, and then if not, you're sort of the way shower for that.
Yeah.
And I think when you create that type of energy, people are drawn to it, even if they don't quite know how to express that yet, or they don't know how to label it. I think that that brings in people. And as you were talking, it made me think about balance. And in addition to creativity, I feel like that balance, like you were saying, you don't have to throw everything out. It's just becoming, we need both sides of everything. There's always going to be the shadow and the light. And there can be ways to work with that if you're in balance, and gifts that, come from that sort of circular working together type of model, if you want to put
Yes.
it that way.
And then it doesn't have to be that the woman is the feminine, the man is the masculine. It doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
to be that. There seems to be a balance that's happening, or even like androgyny that's happening, where it's freedom to exchange the roles and freedom to be much more fluid, I think.
Right.
And I the other thing you were talking about is like the fierceness of the feminine. And suddenly there's the freedom that there wasn't before. So the fierceness of the feminine, how I felt it and experienced it and saw it, was the bitch,
Mm-hmm.
right? The like the corporate executive who got where she got by being mean. That was the strong feminine. And what's emerging is men and women who are able to feel and embody and express the fierceness, but really have it come across as love.
That's so well put. And I think the first time we talked, we were talking somewhat about that, how growing up, many of us had this idea that there were only certain careers that you could go into to make money, to be considered successful, to have status. And I think fluid and blurring are really good words, because all of that is changing. And that's what's so exciting. That gives us the opportunity to step in and create what we, want to see. So I think that's why this is such an important time. Why I feel like this is just a time of great creativity and creative expression is because of all that blurring and fluidity that is happening among people with the paradigms. And I like to see that expressed,
Yes.
in the positions, in media, in all of our, day-to-day activities. And I'm wondering if you see, besides in your work, if you see that happening, like in a community, just, in general, if you noticed any type of shifting.
Hmm. It's a good question. Well, see, I don't really tap into mainstream media very much. So the media that I'm attached to is like us, people like us. So the creatives and the creatrixes and Imagineers, and there I do really see it. I do really see the freedom to play, the freedom to play with roles, the freedom to play with how is it that we're expressing ourselves? How are we going to turn this up? Um, and along with the Lionsgate, that was big.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we're going to really feel that for 6 to 12 months. I mean, it'll be like, what was it last year? The Saturn Pluto thing in January,
Right.
and it happened, and it was like, is that it? only, only, we got cut off at the knees, and we had no idea what was about to happen. Um, I think it was really powerful in the moment, but what's happening is that the volume is being turned up really slowly, and old picture TVs. So some people won't relate. Now some of the stories that I have, like I was talking about Jessica Rabbit the other day with a client, and she said, "Who's Jessica Rabbit?" I said, "Oh no, it's happening." Okay, so old picture TV. So anyone who can't relate, right? There were buttons at the bottom, and we could change the color and change the volume and change like the contrast, like in like Instagram filters. We could change things. Only it was with the volume, right? What's happening is that everything is slow. Like the contrast in life is being turned up. Like the how we find each other, how we magnetize ourselves to each other, that's turning up. How our gifts are turning up, and it's really subtle at first. You don't see it, and then it's degree by degree by degree, and 6 months from now, you will see it. And I think it's our access is our weird.
Mhm.
I really do. I think that it's finding those things that have always been the things we don't like about ourselves, the things we were made fun of about, the things that we've tried to hide, the things that we have had the most pain about, the most rejection about. Those things are the things that really are access. And the more that we find those and try them on like clothes and fit them, and we may maybe stretch the clothes out a little bit and see how it fits. And if I were going to wear weirdo or creative, or if I were going to wear the things that I've tried not to be, and really change my posture about them, be able to carry myself different, then what would that look like? Or who would that woman be 6 months down the road?
I think of that as the gems that we
Mm.
carry. A
Mm.
lot of times, like you were saying, the things that didn't quite fit in, that made us stand outside of the mainstream, that really are, the parts of ourselves that we can look at and build from. And I think there's a lot of creative expression when we get into those parts. And a lot of times we've been just holding that down so that when somebody finally taps into that, they just sort of explode with ideas, and bringing things to life that they maybe never thought that they could. And I think that that's really exciting. And going back to, you were talking about you don't interact too much with mainstream media. um, I think that's the cool thing now, is there are all these communities that you can find your, place in if you look around a little bit. But I do, like, I'm a writer, so I'm still really interested in media as far as writing, but I'm seeing some new models with that come up that are really exciting. In mainstream, um, for fiction writers or books, there's really only four main publishers now, and they have a bunch of different names under them, but there's really only four, like, corporations that hold all the publishing.
Huh.
And so I've been seeing a rise in, like, community publishing,
Oh.
um, different things like that, independent
Oh.
publishing. And that really excites me because you get to hear more voices. I love when I discover a new writer that I have my favorite big name writers, and I'll be loyal to them forever. But I also get really excited when I find someone who maybe didn't fit the mainstream corporate image of a writer. So I'm very excited, and again, I think that goes back to us not having to throw everything away, but instead, a lot of what's there is the basis, and we can keep building from that.
Mm.
And we can see little like doors opening of where we can fit in. And so I think that's really exciting because then it does get out to more and more. It eventually reaches other people, and then I think that pulls them in.
And then there's that sense of belonging. There's a sense of fitting in. There's a sense of this is right. This is right. I'm right. Not right versus wrong, but there's something it's builds confidence, connection, oxytocin, all of which we're going to need over the next 18 months. And I had a thought, in addition to your new platform, there's so many of us who would love that if you'd be willing to share. So when I find a new writer that has been, I feel like, hidden away a little bit, there's this savoring part, right? I was a literature major, and just to like take in the whole book, not on a computer, in hand, right? To inhale and savor and like wrap myself in that writer. Yeah.
That is so rewarding and so satisfying to be able to do that, to come across someone that just pulls you in with their words and their storytelling abilities. And it's so sad that we may have missed that if we only stayed within, the very sort of narrow view of, the world of publishing. I think that that's really exciting. I wanted to, maybe before we go, talk about creativity as being sacred or coming from the divine, and how you feel that processes through you, or do you feel that it does, and how do you think we're waking up to that, to know that it's actually something, it's a part of the divine inside of us instead of outside of us?
Mm. It's a great question. I think of Elizabeth Gilbert did a TED Talk on how to follow up on Eat, Pray, Love. Like, bam, right? How do you follow up on something like that? And no wonder so many writers drink. And I remember thinking that substances gave me access to something that I didn't have. And so I would really use substances to access creativity. And for a while, maybe, but it opened up to certain doorways, and it was very specific doorways. And then stopping substances, a part of me thought, oh no, I'm never going to have fun again. I'm never going to date again, right? I'll never be creative again. I'll probably never have sex again. I'll never, and it's become something so much more sacred and something so much more profound. And just like I have learned not to have emotional conversations if I haven't eaten, not to have, and don't go lift weights if I haven't slept well. Right? There's certain things that I know that I need to do. And for me, it's a daily meditation practice, a daily spiritual practice, a daily physical practice. I have to move my body every day. I have to sit in meditation every single day. I have to allow time, I call it putzing time, in my schedule to just look on YouTube and write things and be kind of in the flow. I have to allow time that I do eat and run at the same time, but I have to also allow time to really savor food. I have to really allow time to savor time with my animal. Those are the things for me that spark ideas. And if I sit down and I calendar creative time, it never works. But if I calendar putzing time in addition to what the meditation, the calendar prompt that I have for meditation is, I heard a story. Someone asked Saint Teresa how to pray. And she said, I just allow myself to be loved.
Beautiful.
So my calendar prompt is allow myself to be loved for meditation. And then for moving my body, I have a different calendar. And then with all of those things, then something starts to percolate and I can feel something. And that I believe is divine.
Yes, definitely. And I loved your idea of putzing around, like putzing, doodling, those
Yeah.
types of things really open that door to inspiration and for those ideas to just gently flow in. Whereas a lot of times, if you have it scheduled, you're racking your brain, nothing will come to you. And then you get up and take a walk, and all of a sudden, or you just stop and start doodling on the page. And all of a sudden, all the ideas come flowing into you. So I think that that's really important. And it's hard a lot of times, because of schedules. I think people are starting to realize like the importance of being able to just sit really or have nothing planned. The productivity often flows from those periods of
Yeah.
inactivity. I just think that that's really important. It's part of this whole creative inspiration Imagineer, where you get to play with those ideas by letting them just flow in. Megan, we've had the greatest talk. I hope that you will come back again.
I would
Every
love
time we talk, I get so inspired. I want to give you a chance to tell everyone. I do have it below the video of how to reach my website and also your website. But why don't you go ahead and tell everyone what you have going on and how to reach you?
Sure. Thank you so much. Megan M. Riley. You can find me by searching Megan M. Riley. I spend a lot of time on Instagram, and those are really fun. I mean, I have turned it more into a blog on Instagram, which is totally against the rules, and it seems to be working. And then I have a website really as a placeholder, Megan M. Riley. The people that I love to work with are empaths and empath business owners. And really having life go from being at the effect of, putting ourselves last, being people pleasers, not saying things, right? All the things that we as business owners and as empaths do, to really having an extraordinary life. And how is it that we thrive in every area? And how is it that we start saying those things and really having the relationships, all of our relationships show up really, really great. And that for me is so fun.
That sounds like wonderful. And I do love your website and what you have going on. I know you're expanding in some areas and you have a lot of really powerful and empowering things going on for people to get in touch with you. I want to ask everyone to like and subscribe. And feel free to contact Megan or I. For some reason, we're having some trouble here with the comment section. So I wasn't able to see if we had any for us to answer. But if we can get that corrected and I see any, I'll send them to you, Megan. But anyone that's joining in now or joining in later, we want to thank you for joining this first episode of Soul Creativity on August 26th. I'm going to be talking with Shelley Whitehouse. And we will be talking about conscious business and equine facilitated coaching and a bunch of other exciting things. So please feel free to reach out to Megan. You won't be sorry that you did. And I want to thank you, Megan, and hope you'll come back
and
talk with us again. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye.